The world is moving so fast, and there is a high tendency to do anything to survive without following standards. But one industry that you cannot operate in substandard is a language services industry. And that is why our conversation today is so essential to me and, of course, to you, my listeners. My name is Grace Hamwajiman. My guest is here in the studio, and I'll introduce him after this break. Stay with us.
Welcome to Africa's LSP Podcast, where we explore the world of translation, interpretation, and localization, as well as connect with the language industry's top players. From language service providers to the businesses and individuals who rely on their services, we'll be delving into the challenges, opportunities, and trends shaping the industry. Join us as we discover the power of language and the impact it has on connecting Africa and the world. Brought to you by Bolingo Consult, Africa's LSP Podcast is the go-to podcast for all things language in Africa.
Welcome back. Yes, so today we're talking about best practices in the language localization industry with regards to product, content, and audience, also with a keen concentration on Somalia. My guest is Abdikadir Hassan Yussuf, a Somali linguist and localization expert. Hello, Yussuf. You're welcome to Africa's LSP Podcast, and we're honored to have you join us today.
Hello, Grace. Thank you. It's my pleasure and my honor to be at Africa's LSP Podcast, and I'm looking forward to this.
Right. Let's go right into the conversation by telling us a bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, where you're based, what you do, and all the interesting things you want us to know about you, especially about your professional life and family, if you want to share that with us.
Thank you, Grace. My name is Abdikadir Hassan. I'm from Somalia, particularly a region in northern Somalia called Puntland State. Currently, I'm living in Kenya. I've been a Somali linguist and teacher for more than 8 years now, doing my jobs remotely as a freelancer. I've worked with various companies over the course of my journey as a Somali linguist, where I provided and continue to provide them with content localization such as website localization, machine training, and more.
Wow. So we know that Somali language is spoken by some sects of groups. Give us a bit of background to the Somali language, covering where it is spoken, the number of speakers, as well as the variations that it comes with.
A good question, Grace. The Somali language originated in the Horn of Africa and is part of the larger Afro-Asiatic languages. The geographic distribution of the ethnic communities that speak Somali includes Somalia, Kenya, Djibouti, and parts of Ethiopia. And Grace, according to the latest data, the Somali language currently has more than 27 million native speakers.
Wow, did you say 27 million net speakers?
Yeah, that's right.
That is huge. This then obviously should be a key language when it comes to business growth. So help us understand the importance of the Somali language for business growth and expansion, especially in Africa.
Well, the Somali language holds significant importance for business growth and expansion in Africa, particularly in regions where it's widely spoken, such as Somalia, Djibouti, parts of Ethiopia, and Kenya. And some of the reasons why I think it's important for business growth and expansion, especially in Africa, is number one, local communication and trust. We know in every business, effective communication is crucial for building relationships and trust. And speaking Somali allows businesses to engage directly with local communities and also understand their needs and communicate their offerings effectively. Number two, cultural understanding. We know language is intertwined with culture. Therefore, understanding the Somali language and customs demonstrates respect for local traditions and values, which can be pivotal in establishing long-term business relationships. And again, I think there is also access to new markets. We know Somalia and neighboring regions have untapped market potential, and the Somali language therefore facilitates market entry, allows for better market research, and enables businesses to tailor the products or services to local preferences. While English and French are commonly used in African business environments, the Somali language also remains indispensable for companies seeking to expand into or operate effectively within Somali-speaking regions of Africa, and therefore it facilitates direct engagement, cultural understanding, and operational efficiency, all of which are critical for sustainable business growth.
And now that you have mentioned Somali has several variations there, how can companies decide which variety to target for localization, and how should they handle potential variations?
Okay, the Somali language has got two variations or dialects, namely Mahatri, which is the standard Somali spoken by most Somalis, and Mai, which is a dialect spoken by communities in the vicinities of the Shabelle and Juba rivers. So, Mai speakers are generally few, and the Mahatri dialect is actually the national dialect which is spoken in government offices. Deciding which variety of Somali to target for localization depends majorly on several factors that businesses should consider. For example, Grace, the target audience. We know companies should identify the specific region or community within Somalia or neighboring countries where your target market is located. So each variety of Somali language, for example, the Mahatri, the Mai, may be predominant in different regions, and understanding your target audience's linguistic preference and habits is very crucial. There is also market research, and companies should conduct a thorough market research to determine which variety of language is mostly or widely understood and used among the target demographic. This may involve service focus groups or consultation with local experts and community leaders. So, by respecting linguistic diversity and cultural nuances, companies can effectively engage Somali-speaking communities and support their business goals in the region.
So let me take us back to my earlier question of how the Somali language helps in business growth and expansion. You emphasized how it is key to also promote and preserve culture. Let us now look at cultural nuances when translating content for Somali audiences. What are some key cultural sensitivities to be aware of in relation to gender, humor, idioms, religion, references, and all that you can think of?
An important question, Grace. So, when translating content for Somali audiences, it's crucial to be aware of several key cultural sensitivities to ensure the messages are accurately understood and well received. For example, there is respect for Islam in Somalis. Somalis are predominantly Muslims, and Islamic values permeate many aspects of their daily life. So, content should be respectful in terms of Islamic principles, and also avoid any content that may deem it blasphemous or offensive to religious beliefs, and adhere to cultural norms related to modesty and decency. The Somali culture also places a strong emphasis on hospitality and respect for genders and elders, and content should reflect these values by using polite language, showing deference to authority figures, and expressing gratitude appropriately. There's also the issue of gender sensitivity, Grace, where gender roles in Somali society may differ from Western norms. We either have male or female in Somali, and therefore it's important to be sensitive to gender-specific language and imagery and avoid stereotypes or content that could be perceived as discriminatory or disrespectful towards either of these two genders. And about humor and sensitivity, Grace, humor can vary widely across cultures, and what may be funny in one culture could be misunderstood or offensive in another. Therefore, carefully consider the use of humor and ensure it aligns with Somali cultural sensibilities, avoiding topics that may be sensitive or taboo. And about idioms and languages, we know the Somali language is rich in idioms and expressions that may not have direct equivalences in English or any other language. So ensure that idiomatic expressions are accurately translated or adapted to maintain their intended meaning and cultural relevance. And on top of this, partnering with native speakers or cultural consultants can further enhance the accuracy and impact of your translations.
Wow, I must say that was a very deep and vivid response. So if you are a language person out there seeking to make inroads in Somalia, then you know what to do and what not to do. Yusuf, I want you to elaborate on the specific technical challenges associated with Somali localization, such as font compatibility, date and time, format, or right-to-left text direction. Does that come to play in any way?
Well, Somali localization presents several technical challenges, of course, that businesses need to address to ensure their content is accurately and effectively conveyed to Somali-speaking audiences. For example, the font compatibility. Somali uses Latin script with additional characters for unique sounds that are not found in English, or any other European language. So ensuring proper font compatibility is crucial to display these characters correctly. Some fonts may not include all necessary characters, leading to rendering issues where certain letters or diacritics appear incorrectly or are substituted with placeholder symbols. There's also the issue of standardization, which is also a problem, as there might be regional differences in spelling and terminology, which can lead to inconsistencies in the localized content. User interface design adjustments is also a major problem in Somali language, especially in applications and websites. You may need to adjust user interfaces to fit Somali context, which can be longer or shorter than its English counterparts. There's also the problem of technical terms, and the Somali language actually may lack direct translations for certain technical or specialized terms, so developing or adapting appropriate terminology that's widely understood and accepted can be a big challenge.
Well, I'm enjoying the conversation so much. I keep going back and forth, but let me take you back to the importance of the Somali language. Apart from businesses, as Bilingual Consult, we also work with a lot of development organizations and NGOs. So share with us the significance of the Somali language for NGOs and especially those working in the Horn of Africa. And looking at how widespread the Somali language is spoken, one cannot help but adapt with the times, changes, and the trends that accompany the language. Bring us up to speed on the current trends in the Somali market that businesses and organizations should consider when localizing their products and services.
Thank you for this question, Grace. As I said earlier, the Somali language holds significant importance for NGOs, that's the non-governmental organizations operating in the Horn of Africa region, which includes Somalia, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and parts of Kenya. And here are actually several reasons why the Somali language is very, very crucial for NGOs in this context. Number one, effective communication. The Somali language is the primary language spoken by majority of people in Somalia and parts of the neighboring countries. So effective communication in Somali is essential for NGOs to engage with local communities, to understand their needs, and to deliver their services effectively. The other one is community engagement. Speaking Somali allows the NGOs to actually build trust and rapport with local communities. It facilitates meaningful interactions, consultations, and participation of community members in the developmental projects and humanitarian assistance initiatives. There's also the point of cultural sensitivity, and understanding and respecting Somali language and culture is essential for NGOs to operate ethically and effectively. It also enables NGOs to navigate cultural norms, traditions, and sensitivities, thereby enhancing acceptance and cooperation from local stakeholders. There's also the point of emergency response, where humanitarian crises such as natural disasters, droughts, and conflicts, rapid and accurate communication in Somali is vital for NGOs to coordinate emergency response efforts, deliver aid, and provide essential services to affected populations. So, in summary, the Somali language is not just a means of communication, but a gateway to understanding and engaging with the diverse communities of the Horn of Africa. And NGOs that prioritize linguistic and cultural sensitivity through proficient Somali are better positioned to foster sustainability and support humanitarian efforts and promote positive social change in the region. So, understanding current trends in the Somali market is crucial for businesses and organizations aiming to localize their products and services effectively. And I think some key trends to actually consider, Grace, include Mobile and internet penetration. We know Somalia has experienced significant growth in mobile phone usage and internet penetration, driven by the availability of affordable smartphones and improving telecommunications infrastructure. So businesses should consider digital platforms for marketing, sales, and service delivery, and also ensuring websites and applications are optimized for mobile access. There's also e-commerce and digital payments. There's actually a rising trend towards e-commerce platforms and digital payment systems in Somalia, and businesses can capitalize on this opportunity by offering online purchase options, secure payment gateways, and delivery services tailored to local preferences and logistics capabilities. The youth demographics also is another item. We know Somalia has a youthful population majorly, with a high percentage under the age of 30 years. So this demographic is tech-savvy, entrepreneurial, and increasingly influential in shaping consumer trends. Products and services that appeal to youth interests and aspirations, such as technology, fashion, and entertainment, have strong potential in the market. So by aligning their strategies to these current trends, businesses and organizations can effectively navigate the Somali market and also capitalize on emerging opportunities and contribute to sustainable economic development in the region. So flexibility and adaptability and a deep understanding of local dynamics are actually a key to success in this dynamic and evolving market.
Indeed, I might say that language is not just a means of communication, but also a gateway to do so many great things. What tools and technologies then will you say you find most useful in the localization process for Somali so that it doesn't become just a means of communication, but also a gateway to do so many great things?
Well, thank you, Grace, again. In the localization process for Somali, several tools and technologies can greatly facilitate the accuracy, efficiency, and effectiveness of translating and adapting content. So the use of, for example, translation management systems, in short, are known as TMS, help manage translation projects, maintain translation memories, and ensure consistency across translations. They support collaboration among translators and streamline workflow processes. There are also computer-assisted translation tools known as CAT tools, and they are actually invaluable for translators working on Somali localization. These tools actually aid in translating content segment by segment, leveraging translation memories and ensuring terminology consistency. There's also speed and voice recognition, or in short called multimedia applications or technologies that support Somali speech recognition and synthesis are beneficial. Companies like Google and Microsoft are actually expanding their speech recognition capabilities to include more languages, which may eventually include the Somali language. We also have the localization testing tools such as Expunge and Linguistic Toolbox to help QA testers and localization engineers verify the accuracy and functionality of localized content. People such as linguists can actually check for linguistic errors, the UI display issues, and ensure the overall quality of the localized product.
Well, so if you just joined us, this is the Africa LSP Podcast. My guest is Abdikadir Yussuf. He's a Somali language expert, and we're talking about best practices in the language services industry with concentration on Somalia. Yussuf, you have a lot of experience localizing different types of content for Somali audiences, and I can say you have seen it all when it comes to getting it right and also making mistakes. Have you identified any of such mistakes and challenges? And most importantly, how can they be avoided?
Okay, so when localizing for Somali audiences, organizations may encounter several common mistakes that can impact the effectiveness and reception of their efforts. Some of these mistakes can include ignoring cultural nuances. This is a major mistake in overlooking cultural nuances specific to Somali society. This can include inappropriate use of imagery, colors, symbols, or language that may inadvertently offend or misrepresent the culture. So to avoid this, organizations should consider thorough actual cultural research and consult with local experts or cultural consultants who provide guidance on sensitive issues. There's also the problem or the mistake of literal translation errors, such as direct or word-for-word translation from English to other languages, specifically to Somali, can lead to awkward or incomprehensible content. We know Somali has its own idiomatic expressions, phrasing, and linguistic conventions that may not directly correspond to the English. It's therefore important to use skilled translators who can understand both languages and can localize content effectively while maintaining the meaning and intent of the translation. There's also the issue of lack of linguistic quality assurance, which is about failing to conduct thorough linguistic quality assurance, which can result in errors in grammar, syntax, spelling, and terminology consistency. So implementing a QA process can involve review by native language speakers or professional linguists, and this is essential to ensure accuracy and fluency in the localized content. Another issue is neglecting the user experience or UX. Inadequate attention to user experience can hinder the adoption and usability of localized products and services. This includes considerations such as ensuring text readability, appropriate font sizes, intuitive navigation, and compatibility with devices commonly used by the Somali audiences. Conducting user testing with Somali speakers can identify the UX issues early on. And lastly, not adopting to digital trends. It's true Somali has seen rapid growth in mobile and internet usage. Organizations that actually fail to adopt their digital strategies and platforms to accommodate mobile access and low bandwidth environments may miss out on a region's significant portion of the Somali audience. So optimizing websites, apps, and digital content for Somali usage is very crucial. And to avoid these mistakes collectively, organizations should invest in thorough research, engage with local stakeholders, employ skilled translators and linguists, implement robust Q&A processes, conduct user testing, and remain adaptable to feedback and evolving market dynamics. By prioritizing cultural sensitivity, linguistic accuracy, and user centricity, organizations can effectively localize their offerings for Somali audiences and enhance their engagement and impact in the region.
And obviously, we cannot complete this conversation without chipping in the almighty AI. It is like everybody's talking AI and everybody almost has an opinion on AI, and especially about how it impacts the language services industry. Yusuf, share your opinion with us. Do you think it has become an enemy or it has become a friend to the language services industry?
Well, to be honest with you, Grace, in my opinion, artificial intelligence represents a powerful tool that can enhance efficiency and accessibility in the language services industry. We know it enables faster processing of large volumes of content. It also improves accuracy in certain tasks and expands the reach of language services to more users globally. However, we know also that human expertise remains irreplaceable in areas requiring cultural sensitivity, creative adaptation, and nuanced understanding of language. And the future of AI in the language service industry will likely involve greater integration of AI tools with human expertise, fostering collaboration rather than competition. Organizations that leverage AI to augment human capabilities, prioritize quality, and uphold ethical standards are likely to lead in delivering effective and impactful language services in a rapidly evolving digital landscape.
Well, it's been great and enlightening speaking to you, Yussuf, but I can't let you go without speaking to our large Somali audiences in your language and then in English. One of the things we try to do on this podcast is to also let people speak in their language so that the audience can relate and identify with it proper. So say something to the people in Somalia in your language.
Okay, great.
Yes, I'm sure they are eager to listen to what you have to tell them in your language.
Well, here I'll go. Dadka Soomaaliga ah ee dhegeysanaya waxaan u sheegayaa inaad luuqadiina ku faantaan oo aad ku dadaashaan barashada naxwaheeda iyo luuqadaheeda lahjadeeda kala duwan iyo inaad sidoo kale ku codsataan wax walba oo rasmi ah af Soomaali laydinku siiyo oo yacni la idin turjubaano. And in English, here is what it might mean. To the Somalis listening to me, I would like to urge you to be proud of your language and put more effort in learning its grammar and different dialects and to request everything official in Somali language version. Do request anything official in Somali language.
All right, Yussuf, thank you so much for joining us today. We've learned a lot from our conversation. And if for nothing, I know that over 27 million people worldwide speak the Somali language, and it is not a language that we should be taken for granted. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Grace. I'm most welcomed. I wish you well, and I wish the Somali language expansion and greatness.
This has been the Africa LSP Podcast. And to you, our audience, we are always honored to have you join us. Thank you for making us a part of your time and tuning in into today's episode of the Africa LSP Podcast, which is your go-to podcast when it comes to anything African language. My name is Grace Hamwa-Jiman. Until we come your way again with another episode, salam and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Africa's LSP Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and learned something new. For feedback or enquiries, reach out to us at podcast@bolingoconsult.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite platforms. Until next time, stay curious and keep growing.